health. Real women and their personal stories.
It's 20 years since the Arab League held its annual summit in Iraq. An Al Jazeera news special has full coverage from Baghdad.
Branded a lunatic by some and an inspirational revolutionary by others, Al Jazeera follows the controversial Norman Finkelstein.
This is Al Jazeera.
Hello, welcome to the News Hour live from Doha. I'm Fuli Batibo from the Al Jazeera News Center here in Doha and live from Libya, Tunisia and Geneva. These are the main stories. Gaddafi's son arms his supporters as a town near Tripoli braces for a brutal fight back by Libyan troops. The Human Rights Council gathers for crisis talks with Western leaders saying Gaddafi must go. Will a new interim prime minister be enough to satisfy protesters in Tunisia? Plus...
And the Oscar goes to Colin Firth.
Natalie Portman, The King's Speech.
And few surprises in Hollywood as The King's Speech is crowned the big winner at this year's Oscars. They fought and won control of their town, but now opponents of Libyan leader Muammar Gaddafi fear a counter-attack in AlJazeera. The town is reportedly surrounded by troops loyal to Gaddafi. AlJazeera lies just 50 kilometers to the west of the capital, Tripoli. 3 more areas in the east are also reported to be under the control of anti-government protesters. New video, meanwhile, has emerged which appears to show the son of Libyan leader Muammar Gaddafi arming government supporters. Saif al-Islam is trying to prop up his father's regime as anti-government protesters close in on Gaddafi's stronghold. The UN Human Rights Council is now meeting in Geneva in Switzerland to discuss the crisis. Western leaders are becoming increasingly outspoken against Gaddafi, calling for him to go. And as foreigners continue to pour out of Libya, more and more countries are pledging to send aid in amid warnings of food and medical shortages. Lawrence Lee has the latest developments from Libya.
You'd be forgiven for thinking that if a town only half an hour from Tripoli is in the hands of protesters with tanks, then the end must surely be near. Yet the days drift by, momentum ebbs and flows, and for the time being, Gaddafi's regime has enough to avoid falling to the people's uprising. Given the routine way in which Gaddafi's armed forces have been switching allegiances over the last few days, one of the questions that keeps being raised is how are the Gaddafis maintaining a fighting force? Up until now, the chief spokesman for Gaddafi has been his son, Saif al-Islam. He has routinely accused the media of lying about the fighting. Maintaining Libya is entirely at peace with itself.
The point that you are hearing rumors, false reports, please take your camera tomorrow morning, even this night, go to every city in Libya. Everything is calm, everything is peaceful.
And yet this has now emerged. The same man, semi-automatic in hand, exhorting people to fight for his father.
I'm here to raise your morale. They are spreading rumours that our police and security forces are joining the hooligans. It's not true. Today we'll show them that the police are siding with Libya. I'm bringing you reinforcements, resources, food, weapons, everything you need.
Even discounting the irony that Saif al-Islam Gaddafi has warned about the prospects of civil war while seeming to arm a militia is the question of exactly how good these people are at fighting. Clearly it's not difficult to shoot unarmed protesters in Tripoli, but what the totality of Gaddafi's forces is now, compared to those of the insurgency, is an open question. Al Jazeera filmed this gloomy-looking group in custody in the opposition stronghold of Al-Baida. They're not even prepared to admit to being mercenaries. Many told the same story, however. The government had employed them in Libya to provide security at what were described as celebrations, and they were surprised at getting caught up in the violence. No wonder they look fed up. If Western Libya remains on a knife edge and will determine Gaddafi's fate, all the reports from the east suggest people trying to get on with life after Gaddafi anyway. The other big question is whether cities like Benghazi actually want to move on Tripoli, or whether they're happy to let Tripoli decide its own fate. Lawrence Lee, Al Jazeera.
Well, a little earlier, a resident in AlJazeera gave us an update on what's been happening there.
AlJazeera from last night until now is very quiet. Really, it's quiet. No more attacks. There are some groups of Gaddafi militia outside of the area of AlJazeera. Otherwise, all the areas controlled by the revolutions. We have no problems now, other than that they are making a gate from at the corners of AlJazeera, out of the AlJazeera. Somehow they are corrupting the movement of the people, the cars, and they are exposing the cars if they have weapons or something like this, asking the people from where going to where to move from AlJazeera to other place. It's not smooth. Now they don't. I think they don't have a chance to come again because a lot of military people are with us now, and also a lot of weapons with us.
Now, further east, we're getting reports from witnesses that anti-Gaddafi forces have shot down a military aircraft near Misrata and captured its crew. Let's go now live to Geneva, where the Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov is addressing the UN Human Rights Council. Let's listen in.
Recent turbulent events in certain regions of the world, including the Middle East, once again have clearly demonstrated that its stable and secure world order and sustainable development should rest upon the processes of democratization and the comprehensive modernization of society. Mass protests across the Middle East and North African countries have exposed a range of problems that have accumulated over decades: poverty, unemployment, the lack of social and economic rights in general. These problems should be addressed by the peoples of the affected countries themselves without coercion or external interference, peacefully and within legal frameworks through national dialogue and public consensus on the ways for long overdue transformations. The use of military force against civilians is unacceptable, as occurred in Libya, causing hundreds of civilian deaths. Russia condemns such violence, demands its immediate cessation and observance of international humanitarian law. We have clearly expressed our attitude towards those events in the statements by the President of the Russian Federation and the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, as well as in the joint Russian-EU statement of the 24th of February and 2 days ago in the United Nations Security Council. We also welcome the principled stand taken by the Human Rights Council. The tasks of democratization and modernization face not only individual countries, but the entire system of international relations as well. The realities of an emerging, new, fairer, polycentric world require the development of multilateral institutions which should promote equitable cooperation and a joint search for solutions to emerging problems. These solutions should strengthen the global rule of law, ensure democratic procedures both in domestic and international affairs, and contribute to the general observance of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, as well as of other universal instruments, as well as revealing the creative potential of civil society and help increase its responsibility. The United Nations Human Rights Council was established precisely as one of these institutions. While formulating the goals for the Council 5 years ago, we believed that human rights were a cornerstone of the current world order and United Nations activities, along with security and development. Resolution 60/251 of the United Nations General Assembly, establishing the Council, declared principles such as equitable dialogue, the elimination of double standards, and the improper use of human rights arguments to advance narrow political interests, equal attention to all human rights categories, broadening understanding among civilizations, cultures, and religions on the basis of common human rights values, and with due account for national and regional particularities. The procedure of such an effective and equitable monitoring mechanism as the Universal Periodic Review, which has already proven its relevance, had been agreed upon. The Russian Federation has undergone this procedure and is taking steps to incorporate the recommendations we've received into its ongoing national efforts to protect human rights and develop civil society. We expect all other countries to also take on recommendations by the Human Rights Council in the most serious manner. We also must look more closely at the rights of national minorities, in particular in the context of the chronic problem of statelessness. We need to ensure full implementation of the corresponding resolutions of the OSCE, EU, and the CERD. We believe that we could also have a contribution made by the Human Rights Council, which has shown its viability and its ability to take effective decisions. The adoption of the Code of Conduct has strengthened the framework for the functioning of special procedures, special rapporteurs, special representatives, experts, and working groups. The nature of its working style has also changed, characterized now by broad-based dialogue, the involvement of countries concerned, and a search for consensus. We consider it extremely important to continue improving the working methods of the Council and to avoid politicization of its topics as an instrument of political pressure. Attempts to divide states into bad, good, pupils, tutors, and to dilute the interstate nature of the Council are counterproductive and can only harm multilateral cooperation. These issues require increased attention in the context of the ongoing HRC review. We see our main task as being to preserve the constructive potential and positive atmosphere which had been so difficult to achieve. The Council should not shy away from difficult issues, but some of them should be approached on a stage-by-stage basis without mounted attacks or cavalry charges, so as to avoid a negative impact on the process of building mutual confidence. If everybody is interested in achieving specific results in the form of real improvements in the human rights situation, that is indeed the approach we should take. If, however, some are interested mainly in broader mass media coverage, that has to do with public relations rather than cooperation. Mr. President, last year we celebrated the 65th anniversaries of two key events in the recent history of mankind: the great victory in World War II and the establishment of the Nuremberg International Tribunal for the prosecution of major Nazi criminals. The tragedy of that war convinced world leaders of the need to establish the United Nations. The United Nations became the cornerstone of modern international law, a fundamental code of conduct for states and multilateral organizations, and laid down a foundation for the current system of promoting and protecting human rights. The provisions of the Nuremberg Tribunal Charter were also supported by the United Nations General Assembly in its decisions as universally recognized principles of international law, which provided a basis for the further development of standards on the norms of war crimes, crimes against humanity, including genocide, and for defining constituent elements of the crime of aggression. Our common duty is to carefully protect this international legal foundation for current relations between states in its entirety. This has been worked out by peoples as the main lesson of World War II. Political speculation and attempts to distort its genesis, nature, and consequences, to equate victims with butchers, liberators with aggressors, and to challenge the outcomes of the Nuremberg Tribunal are inadmissible. Such attempts are nothing but a mockery of the memory of millions of people from all countries who fell in the fight against Nazism, and they create a breeding ground for new ideologies of hatred. Russia's initiative, the United Nations General Assembly annually adopts a resolution calling for the suppression of such attempts. Regrettably, some countries, including members of the anti-Hitler coalition, feel shy to support it, alluding to freedom of expression. We regard this position as highly dangerous. Everyone must recall.
That's Russia's Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov addressing the UN Human Rights Council meeting in Geneva. Sergei Lavrov started his remarks by, of course, mentioning Libya, saying that the use of military force in the country is unacceptable, saying that Russia condemns the events in Libya. But he also added that these riots in the region have exposed a range of problems that have to be addressed without external intervention. That's the Russian Foreign Minister once again. AlJazeera's Nick Spicer is following this meeting for us in Geneva, joins us now live. Nick, as expected, Libya pretty much at the top of the agenda there of discussions in Geneva today.
Absolutely, all the foreign ministers and speakers are talking about Libya, even though there are other subjects on the agenda. The Russian position was very interesting because Russia has rallied around the position of the United States and other Western countries, deciding Saturday to join